Okay. So going back to the question of organic versus conventional, the Dirty Dozen is a great list, and I'll put it. You know what I'm realizing? What I'll do is I'll send it. We'll all send it out via the announcement, or you can just Google Dirty Dozen. It's the top 12 list of uh, produce items that are might be the best to choose organic because those are the foods each year that tend to have more pesticides. Strawberries is always high on the list. Apples are always high on the list because they just tend, as a plant food, they just tend to have more pesticides. They require more pesticides. So strawberries are always usually on that list. So going back to my point, so if you were to go into anyone to go into a grocery store and compare like conventional strawberries versus organic strawberries, well, if the organic strawberries, which typically happens because they are more expensive, so they might not be bought as quickly, so they're sitting on the shelf longer, aren't looking as good. Well, you're actually, they might be more rotten, or they might you might get home and only be able to eat a quarter of them, right? Because 3/4 of them went to the compost. So really, it comes down to, did you get more value out of organic product? So the organic versus the conventional question ends up being a really big picture question.
So Michelle, thank you for. I totally understand what you're saying, that it does depend on the person, and as a dietitian, you just want someone to eat more vegetables. And I think that Professor Levitsky, as a psychologist, is probably also seeing that big picture, right? Because he's also seeing the data and just saying, just go buy it. In his recipes, he's like, this is the cheapest one. This is the cheapest
just eat your vegetables.
Just eat. So, but I guess, and I understand that. And I also understand, that it's not as much my question about the value, not that I have unlimited funds, but if does your body have to fight off, is there a negative, Michelle, when your body has to fight off the chemicals that are on them? So that's kind of like that second part. So I understand what you're saying, and there's a total pro and con that you should think about, right? Each of us should think about. But just alone, if we could do anything we want, if we could buy whatever, if it was fresh, is there a component that our body has to fight off, or your liver has to process it out?
Yeah, I see what you're asking, and I would say yes. But again, it depends because, again, if you're not eating enough of those fruits and vegetables, you're not getting enough antioxidants, you're not getting enough of those nutrients, so your body's not strong enough to fight it off. So, having, at the end of the day, and that's why we always go back to just eat your fruits and vegetables. But are there toxins? I mean, the environment is full of toxins, and that's why we live in high amounts of oxidative stress. Again, that's what the topic that we're going to talk about next time. Oxidative stress, free radicals, antioxidants, phytochemicals. The beauty of fruits and vegetables, right? Why, one of the many reasons why we try to encourage a variety of fruits and vegetables. So yes, absolutely. But there's toxins all through, the environment. So it's just, it's another one. It's another one that we would need to deal with. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
I think Shirley had a question. What about frozen strawberries? Shirley asked, what about frozen strawberries? Shirley, do you mean organic versus conventional?
Yeah. What about buying frozen strawberries instead of buying the fresh ones? Are they better than non-organic fresh?
So typically, or anything frozen, I'll give you it's a little food service or food manufacturing lesson. Food manufacturing, any frozen fruit or vegetable, and even often protein, so like your frozen salmon or frozen cod that you might get at the grocery store, it's called IQF, which means individually quick frozen. So they put them out on these large, massive trays and freeze them individually, so they're not all lumped together. So that's why you get, when you buy a bag of frozen strawberries or blueberries, they're easy to, they're not one big mass, but they're individually quick frozen, and so they're frozen at the time of picking. So often, Shirley, and I think I'm glad you brought this up, oftentimes frozen can be better because you're more likely to not have it go in the garbage because it got rotten. It's frozen at its time of peakness, so, or right as it's picked, so it might it hasn't been, not only are you avoiding it getting rotten, but it's delicious. And so it might make you feel like you are excited about eating strawberries more often. And all of a sudden, I don't know about you guys, but when I bite into a fresh strawberry that's kind of got that icky taste, like I'm done with strawberries. But frozen strawberries don't tend to have that, right? So that adds to the value of the strawberries. In terms of organic versus conventional, it's the same thing. You're still getting, especially in frozen, you're still going to get those pesticides. They're not getting rid of the pesticides through frozen.
Okay, that's what I want.
Through the freezing process. And oftentimes, because they're frozen, and you're not having to worry about the that fear of them going bad or sitting on the shelf for a longer period of time, organic strawberries can tend to be actually cheaper. So, oftentimes they're a great option. Now, one of my little tricks, actually, and a lot of people don't know this, I was working with another class last week, and this student was talking about how hard it is to find organic produce, and it's expensive. Aldi is a great way to get fresh organic produce, and it's cheaper. I am constantly amazed how Aldi is the 9th largest grocery store in the world, and most people overlook it, but I will tell you that they have a huge organic section, and time again, every time I go there, I'm like surprised by the freshness of the organic produce. So that would be a little trick to, and they actually, the reason why I thought of it, Shirley, actually is they have organic frozen strawberries, and they're delicious. My kids gobble them up. They love them. They eat them frozen, they eat them defrosted, they put them in smoothies and so forth. So why do I do it again? I try to stick to that dirty dozen, even though, there's science behind a lot of those plants need those extra pesticides. I grew up in upstate New York, right around this huge area for apples. And it's the area the people that live in the area know that the apple trees get high levels of pesticides, because apple trees are very susceptible to lots of different pests and bugs. And you lose a couple apple trees, you lose the whole orchard. So it's quite apples are typically really high on that list as well. These are great questions. Any other questions?
I think I was wondering, I had a question about the autonomic nervous system and the stimulation of parasympathetic. Am I in the right ballpark here? Am I in the right class to ask this question?
Oh yeah, you're in 601, so you're just starting off, and you get hit with the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, so that you can really start thinking about it. And Karen can probably attest to this. You keep going back to it, even if Dr. Levitsky doesn't cover it, it's in your mind, like, oh yeah, right? Because stress plays such a big part of all of these chronic diseases that we cover, right? So cardiovascular disease, all of those things. So go ahead.
Yes,
yeah, go ahead.
A quick question then. I think I was relating in my reflection that we always, when we set up, I did some training with hospitals in emergency preparedness. And one of the things we trained on is setting up a family assistance center. And we always make sure that we have food and drink there. I mean, not only is it just a courteous thing to do, but I'm wondering if the actual, when you're in a stressful situation, how that interacts with your digestive system. Like if you are able to take in food and drink, does it have a calming effect somehow on the nervous system, or is it something that you're going to be craving because you're stressed out? What I'm interested in the interaction in there.
Yeah, I think that the best way I can describe it is that the digestive system in a true sympathetic activation, right? So let's just use, you're getting chased by a bear, and again, I'm in upstate New York, so we saw a bear a couple days ago. So we're getting chased by a bear. Your digestive system, that becomes it's no longer as important as some of the other systems, right? So, but that's different than a sympathetic activation due to a stressful situation. Because in a stressful situation, I mean, it doesn't happen being chased by a bear. It's usually it's fast, it's furious, it happens. It takes you quite a while to recover. If anyone can think of, and that's in that discussion, you go through thinking about a situation like that. And a lot of times people will say, yeah, it took me a good 18 hours or 12 hours or a day and a half, 2 days to recover. Your body needs to recover a little bit. But it sounds to me like what you're talking about is something that might go on for days or weeks, really intense situation that perhaps people knew that was going on. So your body kind of shifts into, it's still in a sympathetic activation, but it's this chronic activation, right? So the chronic activation can be impacted in many different ways. And, oftentimes when I'm in 601, I'll make the recommendation of the book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, because, and I think that book summarizes so well, and of why, animals go into, quick sympathetic activation, quick parasympathetic activation, but don't really have this chronic stress that humans experience. And that chronic stress, that chronic activation of the sympathetic system is what can, have an impact on migraines and blood pressure and digestive issues. So some people might actually not want food at all, and their body might react in that way, but they're drinking, I don't know, they crave drinking coffee, they're not sleeping, so they drink coffee all day. People kind of deal with it differently, and you'll read in the discussion, or you'll also, I'm sure I've heard people have said, oh yeah, I can't eat at all when I'm stressed. And then other people will say, oh yeah, I totally eat all the time when I'm stressed. So it really depends in the chronic activation. So there's a little bit of a nuance here. Because
is it possible though, for people who maybe eat when they're stressed, are they attempting to, and is it possible to activate that parasympathetic response that calms your body down?
Absolutely. That's part of it. And could they perhaps then also get a sympathetic digestive reaction, like they might, tend towards having diarrhea or constipation during that time? So it really depends on the person. And yeah, but to your point, let's just use an example. They might, cinnamon rolls might have some kind of long time history for them. And somebody brings cinnamon rolls and it's like, oh, wow. Even just the smell starts to relax them. So, to your point, and maybe a great thing to do during that time is say, are there any foods that are connect you to this person? Are there any foods that in this family that feel very healing or relaxing? Somebody might say, yeah, we loved when so-and-so made us chocolate chip cookies, and we bring in chocolate chip cookies. So that could definitely.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah, I think that's great thinking. I love how you're thinking about that. All right. Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
Thank you very much, Michelle. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely, Don. Nice to see you all. And again, we'll convene, I guess it's in about a week and a half, and I'm going to talk at length about phytochemicals and antioxidants, oxidative stress. So something that, is kind of just touches the surface about, the value of fruits and vegetables in this course. We're going to really do a deeper dive on that in the next office hours.
Michelle, oh, I'm so sorry, Don. Michelle, I was going to ask you, could I ask one last question, or do you have to wrap up?
Oh, no, well, you absolutely can. Don, did you have another comment or question?
I was just going to say, looking forward to it. You take good care.
Awesome. Okay. Nice to see you, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. And
Yes,
Karen, certainly.
So it had to do with protein, Michelle. So in the last, I think it was the last course, one of the modules talking about protein not showing any benefit to athletic performance. And so I pretty much understood that. But my question is about, doesn't protein help to repair muscle fibers, so that if the protein's not necessarily affecting and benefiting your athletic performance as an athlete at the beginning, or any of us, does protein, or making sure you have enough, or the reason why a lot of athletes go towards eating a lot of protein is because not necessarily the performance at the beginning and that expenditure of energy, but if they want to build muscle mass, and through like lifting weights and whatnot, what I understand is the muscle tissue kind of gets a little bit damaged, and then the protein is what's rebuilding them and healing them. So I guess I was a little bit curious about that benefit of protein and helping muscles rebuild. Therefore, that's why a lot of athletes and athletic trainers will say, make sure you eat a lot of protein to their athletes.
Yeah, so great question. I think, I'll answer in a couple of different ways. So protein, when we eat protein, our body breaks it down and basically utilizes it as an amino acid pool. So it breaks it down into these amino acids. We have 20 different amino acids that go through our body, and it's an amino acid pool. So our body is always utilizing them to build, repair, right? So there's lots of different functions. And one of those functions is like, if you have a cut, you need to repair the skin tissue, and perhaps, if you have a deep cut, you're repairing much more. So the body constantly needs this amino acid pool. So that's the primary function of proteins, i.e. amino acids. When the big sticking point here for the course is an athlete needs energy. And so true energy comes from carbohydrates, right? And so it's a common myth that most people are like, well, you need protein. Now, if I ask, I teach live, a nutrition course live, and the number one question I say, or the number one answer I get when I ask the question, where do we get energy? Most people answer protein. So it's this common, a myth that people think we get our energy from protein. No, we do not get any energy necessarily. We could, our body would prefer using carbohydrates and then fats, and then finally proteins. It really doesn't want to use proteins for energy because there are so many other reasons we need protein. So with that, Karen, the big point in the course is really to focus on the carbohydrates. And in terms of repair, right? So not necessarily like build big muscles, but just repair your body after any kind of extreme athletic performance. Protein is really important, and so are antioxidants actually. And really having a good mixture of, or good variety of foods really helps. So having that repair is important because your body needs that constant amino acid pool. And so, you know, if you're not, if you're not, a person is not getting enough of those amino acids, and there's perhaps too many of one type of amino acid and not enough of another amino acid, the body starts pulling from its own amino acids within its body structure to make those proteins, or conversely will just not be able to make those proteins. So a good example is insulin is a protein. Okay, you know, our body needs insulin. It makes insulin to manage carbohydrates, and it is, I think I want to say it's 52 different amino acids in a long amino acid strand, and there's lots of different amino acids. So if your body isn't getting the right amino acids, it might impact things like our hormones and, again, our overall structure. So when it comes down to our muscles and our bones and healing, right? So a lot of people have something that's just not healing right. And it's like, you know, your body is utilizing those amino acids for other things. So, you know, having the replenishment of those amino acids is really important, especially in high athletic performance, because in high athletic performance, now I'm talking about high, you know, like really extreme athletic performance, you know, Olympic, like they need constant replenishment of the amino acids because, you know, they're constantly pushing their muscles, they're constantly pushing their body.
So Michelle, but from what I understand in the course, Americans, we're all eating so much protein that there's a very small chance of the negative that you just pointed out. There's a very small chance that people don't have enough to do basic cell repairment and tissue repairment, unless for some reason they just don't have a varied diet, correct?
It's varied diet, but also, you know, a lot of, you know, so if we go to the standard American diet, it doesn't necessarily represent good, clean protein, right? It's
a lot of red meats and.
Well, red meat is good protein. It has good protein. I'm thinking processed meat, right? So like lots of hot dogs and sausage, and those have fillers and other things and fats, and don't necessarily you know, deliver the amount of amino acids that our body has. The other challenge comes in with digestive. If we have any digestive issues or lack nutrients to help digestion and absorption of proteins, then we still don't, even if we're eating. And so it ends up being like people are could be overweight or obese and be malnourished because their body is just not able to access the nutrients that they're eating, or they're eating a lot of calories but not necessarily a lot of nutrients.
Thank you so much. I think one of the things that the course just, I don't know, highlights is the massive complexity of metabolism. But for me, it's like, I don't know if everyone else feels it, it's so exciting. And this course is so empowering for us to be healthier, you know, and it's just, I don't know, it's really exciting. But thank you so much.
I think what it really, and the reason why people love it so much, what it really does is it boils down the science for you, but then applies to your life, right? So that's the goal. It's like, there's a lot of science here, but you can apply this to your life. You can bring in key factors, and that's, you know, 606, which it sounds like that's what you're in. It's like, oh my gosh, I could do these action steps. Here's the science to back it up. And, you know, it's very approachable. So
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Rachel, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. And this is probably kind of pointed, but there was something that they said in one of the modules that I just found a little confusing. I just wondered if you might be able to explain it further. So he was talking about vitamin E as an antioxidant, and in the studies that he was referencing, they showed that if people were intentionally taking vitamin E, either through food or through supplement, there was a beneficial effect. But if they, like in the placebo studies where they either were or weren't taking it and didn't have that like intention about the effects of it, that it wasn't effective at all. And that just seems so crazy to me. Now, maybe I misunderstood the section, but either way, I just, that's a question that I had.
Okay. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look in the module, but I can explain vitamin E because it is a little bit confusing, and it's really supplement versus food. So there have been scientific studies that have demonstrated that, you know, taking just straight vitamin E supplementation has not proven to be very beneficial, but to be eating it in food, high food sources like nuts and seeds, then you're getting a more natural, like you're getting the whole form of vitamin E. It's coming in the food form, and then actually we'll be talking about this later in the next office hours too. But when you're eating any nutrient, really, the bioavailability is higher because you're eating it in whole food form and you're getting other nutrients with it. And so the implication is getting it with these other nutrients, getting it with some of the other macro and micronutrients really helps to deliver that any of those vitamins in a better way. So vitamin E in particular, but there were studies with vitamin A as well that it actually showed if with supplementation of vitamin A as well as vitamin E tended to actually work against the person. So the goal really is to not necessarily go and take antioxidant supplements, but just to focus on food-based antioxidants. So I hope that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are studies, and I think he discusses that, but there are studies that people, there was a group of smokers that were given vitamin A supplementation, and they actually increased the risk of lung cancer. So it's just like eat your vitamin A sources, high sources of, you know, like your reds and oranges. So. Okay, I think Shirley, did you have a question?
Yes. Sorry, going back to the protein, I'm kind of vegetarian. Yeah, kind of vegetarian, and I don't eat that much meat. What about supplementing with vegan protein powders? What do you think about that?
Well, I think, you know, in terms of being able to get enough of the amino acid, because right at the end of the day, you're wanting to get the amino acids, and the old thinking was always try to get what we call complementary proteins.
I'm an athlete.
Okay.
I run, I'm a cyclist, and I really need that protein.
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking.
You need the amino acids, like, I mean, like anyone, but you're probably need it more often just because you're, who knows how much you're running and cycling, but nonetheless, it's a matter of how many of those essential amino acids are you getting at the end of the day, right? So there are some vegetarian foods that do not have all of the essential amino acids, but there are vegetarian foods that do, and that's why soy is so popular. Soy has all the essential amino acids, quinoa has all the essential amino acids, so that's why they're popular. But if you're eating a combination, so the classic thought was always combine rice and beans. So you're getting the essential amino acids from the rice, you're getting the essential amino acids from the beans, and put them together, you're getting all of them. So really, if you're eating a variety of vegetarian protein sources, things like nuts, seeds, I always highlight seeds because especially chia, flax, hemp, they're getting your omega-3s. Oftentimes vegetarian and vegans aren't necessarily getting their omega-3s. So really emphasizing the seeds, getting the nuts, obviously whole grains, legumes, you're then getting your essential amino acids. Okay, awesome.
Very much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I am gonna wrap up here unless anyone had any other questions. And then I will say, I hope that you guys will come next time. I have prepared, or I will prepare a slide deck for you guys. We'll go through like some really specific details about phytochemicals, because it's like, people are like, oh, superfoods. Oh yeah, they're so great. Well, what does a superfood really mean, right? So we're gonna go in and take a deeper look at those. So it was nice meeting everyone. I'm thrilled you're all enjoying the course. And I look forward to seeing you next time.
Michelle, thanks very
you.
much.
All right. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.